Hello everyone, I am Priyanka Mishra working as an assistant professor at SIIT Bhopal. Today we are going to discuss one of the topic of our basic computer engineering, that is concept of OOPS. In this topic we are going to discuss firstly about the object oriented programming approach, then we will discuss about the concept of object oriented programming. So, as we all know that in procedural programming, we emphasis on the functions rather than the data. So, our data is not secured in this approach. To the OOPS approach eliminates these weakness of procedure-oriented programming approach by combining the data and function into a single unit that called class. So our data is secured from the outside world because data can be changed by the associated functions only. These objects form the basic unit of construction of object-oriented program. Here we implemented on the real-world entities called object that have some characteristics and behavior. Now, moving towards the characteristics and concept of OOPS, OOPS language support various features. Each characteristics or feature is described as its own functionality. So the characteristics or concept of OOPS consist of classes, object, encapsulation, data abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, and data hiding. So first we discuss about the feature, that is class. So basically all we know that the class is the basic building block in which can defined as a user defined data type that contain data members and member functions to operate on those data members. It's a collection of similar kinds of object. The class is used to implement encapsulation, data abstraction, and data hiding. One of the advantage of using class is that once you have created a class for certain type of object, you can reuse it in any project. So the class or our class is defined by three elements: a unique class name, data members or attributes, and member functions or method. Here is an example where we defined a class with the name student. In this, there are data members or attribute, that is integer roll number, character name, int age, grade. And here we are using some member functions or method, that is void get data, which include two parameters, integer r and integer age. Now again we use methods in that class. So here we defined our class with a unique name, that is the student. Here we also defined some member functions and data members. So this is an example of our class. Now come to the next feature, that is object. As we all know that an object is a real world entity which has some attributes or some behavior. The state of an object represents all the information held within it. The behavior of an object is the set of action that can be performed to change the state of the object. So these characteristics of the object are represented by the data members of our class, and those behaviors are represented by the member function or our class. So an object is the entity that create to allocate memory. As we all know that at the creation of a class, there is no allocation of memory, but when we create an object, or when an object is created, we allocate memory to it. A class when defined does not have any memory chunk, as we discussed it in a previous itself. We also allocate as soon as object are created. Therefore, an object is a variable or class data type, and it is runtime instance of a class. For example, for a particular student, here X is an object with roll number 101 and its name is ABC. Age is 23 and graded. If these students with these common properties are collected together, then we define a class with these property, that is roll number, his name, his or her name, age, and grade. And each student with these properties will belong to this class. So as we define object by three elements: the object unique name, that is called the identity of an object; variables representing the internal state of an object called instance variable; the operations called message determines the interface and behavior of an object. Now the third feature is encapsulation, where this approach combines data and function together in a single unit. This feature is called encapsulation. This features supports the data security in object-oriented programming. The data can be modified or accessed by the associated member functions only, but its object communicate with each other by passing message to each other. For example, the data of class student consists of roll number, name, age, and the function that can be operated on these data members are input data to read the value of these data item and display function to display these data item. Hence, only these functions can access the roll number, age, and name of the class student. So this is the class that with name student. Here are the data member, that is roll number, name, and age, and the member function, that is input data and display. These two member functions are used to access these data members. So the data members and the associated functions of object are hidden from other object in the system, and the changes to data and functions of an object can made without affecting other object. This feature of object-oriented paradigm separates implementation of the class from its interface that can be made in the class without affecting its interference. Now, the next feature or next concept is data abstraction, where we define only the essential features without giving the background information. This is closely related to our encapsulation feature because abstraction is implemented by encapsulation. For example, for a class person, we may take the person's name, date of birth, age without including the details such that what he or she wears, where he or she resides, whether he or she is married or not. Hence, this information is the background details for us because it is not required for our program. So data abstraction allow dealing with complexity of the object. Class uses the concept of data abstraction, and it is also known as ADT. Now, the next feature is polymorphism. As the name defined, polymorphism means multiple form, which means it is the ability of object-oriented programming to do some work using multiple form. This behavior of the method is dependent on the type or the situation in which the method is called. Let's take a real example. A person can have more than one behavior depending upon the situation. Like a woman, it's have different behavior according to different situations. Sometimes it behave like a mother. In her office, if he was a manager, then at that time he behaved like a manager, a daughter, and this defined her behavior. So this is from where the concept of polymorphism came from. In C++, polymorphism can be achieved using two ways. They are function overloading and operator overloading. Now, next feature is inheritance. It is the capability of a class to inherit or derive properties or characteristics of other class. It also allows reusability, that is using a method defined in another class by using inheritance. The class that derive the property from the other class known as the child class or the subclass, and the class from which the properties are inherited is base class or our parent class. So C++ language support various types of inheritance, that is single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and hybrid inheritance. Data hiding. This feature integrates of state and behavior allow us to implement information hiding. Some information of the objects are made hidden from the outside world so that only member functions can of the same class can access the hidden data. No other member or no other member function from the outside is allowed to access the data. For this, we have three modes, that is public, private, and protected. If we define our class in public mode, that it can be accessed by all in the outside world. But if we define our class in a private mode, then only the member function of that class can access it. This is all about the concept of OOPS. Thank you.